Linda Bridwell. I'm the Executive Director here at the Public Service Commission. This evening we're going to have a presentation, or this afternoon we're going to have a presentation about LG&E case 2022-402, and then afterwards we will take public comments. So if we're ready to start the presentation. Okay. So thank you all for joining us. I want to change the agenda just a little bit this afternoon. We will make a brief presentation from the staff, and this is the opportunity to hear at a high level details about processing the case and a basis for the decision. So if you have tuned in because you were expecting a lot of details about the substance of the case, I appreciate that you have joined us, but that is not what we're going to be discussing today. The staff will not be making a presentation about the case. We used to do that, and going into a lot of detail, and it kind of came across as if we were making the presentation on behalf of the utility. So the purpose of tonight is for the Public Service Commission and the commissioners specifically to take public comments, to hear from the public their opinions about this case. So we have had up to this point 3 public comments in different locations. We will have one more public hearing tomorrow night, but we wanted to give people an opportunity that either missed those that were local to them, or if they were unable to travel to the in person, that they could still make a virtual public comment. So just to reiterate, this evening, we will have a brief presentation from the staff to hear details of the proceeding and a basis for the decision. We are not going to go into a Q&A session of the PSC staff. If you have questions about processing the case, then you can send an email to the psc.ed@ky.gov, or you can call our number that's listed on our website, 502-564-3940. But again, I just want to reiterate, we're going to talk about the process of the case and the basis for the decision, not the details within the case itself. So if you, let me add one more thing before we move on. As I said, this is our 4th of 5 public comment periods. We've had, the first one was July 31st in Lexington, then we had one in Harlan, Kentucky, then last night we were in Madisonville, Kentucky. Tonight is virtual, and then tomorrow night we will be in Louisville. So there is still one more opportunity if you want to come to Louisville and make those comments in person there, if that's convenient for you. In addition to that, the first day of the hearing, in this case the evidentiary hearing, will be August 22nd, Tuesday, August 22nd, and at 9 a.m. at the beginning of the hearing. If you would like to make public comments, we will still take public comments at that time. And it's only at the beginning of the hearing on the first day. You can make those public comments in person, or you here in our offices in Frankfort, or you can sign up, register to make those comments virtually, or at any time during the case and immediately after the evidentiary hearing. You can send us public comments through our website, or you can mail the public comments themselves to our address here in Frankfort, which we'll have at the end of the presentation. So if you'll switch the slides, just briefly to give you an overview of the Public Service Commission. We were created in 1934. We are a 3-member administrative body appointed by the governor with quasi-judicial duties. So the 3 members that make up the commission, actually the rest of us are staff to support them, and so the 3 members make the decisions in the case, and as the regulator, that's why we really are unable to discuss the substance of the case. The parties are coming into the hearing and presenting different sides of the case, and then the commissioners will make a decision in it. We regulate more than 1,100 utilities in the Commonwealth. We're funded by an assessment paid by all of the utilities based on the utilities' annual gross interstate revenues. And our mission, as dictated by the the legislature is that every utility shall furnish adequate, efficient, and reasonable service at a fair, just, and reasonable rate. And really, that's the purpose of the Public Service Commission, is to make sure that that is happening for the citizens of the Commonwealth. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nancy Bensel, who will talk about the next couple slides.
Hi, good afternoon. The first thing I want to talk about is the fact that this is a generation retirement and replacement case. This is governed by a legal process and is decided by the Commission with the determination whether or not the utility satisfied the legal standards that are required for retirement and replacement process. The process itself, the utilities will file an application that includes financial data and written testimony to support whatever it is they're asking for. Persons may request to intervene and become parties to the case. All of the parties respond to, we call them requests for information. It's asking questions to dig in deeper to the information that's provided. There is an evidentiary hearing. In this case, the hearing will be held start on Tuesday, August 22nd at 9 a.m. It is scheduled to continue through Friday, August 25th. After the hearing, the parties will have an opportunity to file briefs and respond to any requests for information that arose from the hearing. A final order deciding the matter will be issued by November 6, 2023. There is a statutory due date tied to the date that the application was accepted for filing, which is January 6th. 10 months out makes it November 6th. And the last piece is to reiterate what Linda said, that public comments can be filed at any time during this proceeding. I'd like to start with the legal standards for generation retirement, which is KRS 278-264. This is a newly enacted law. In the last legislative session, it was passed, and it was enacted, went into law on March 29th this spring. The process is, and the legal standards are both set forth in the statute. By statute, this case has to be processed within 180 days after the application is filed. There's a lot of information. These are very complex cases. So that's a pretty short time frame, but we do our very best to make sure that we're gathering all of the information we need. To date, Commission staff have made 6 requests for information to the utilities. Within the statutory requirement, a final order is issued, and it can be one of 3 options. The application is approved. The application is approved with conditions or modifications, or it's denied. And another key concept is that by statute, the presumption is that retirement of fossil fuel-fired generating facilities, let me back up, fossil fuel-fired generation facilities should not be retired. It's a rebuttable presumption in that if the utilities can provide sufficient evidence and the Commission determines that the evidence met the legal standard, then the units may be retired. And what those standards include is a finding that the utility provided sufficient evidence that the replacement generation is dispatchable, that the replacement generation maintains or improves reliability and resilience of the electric transmission grid, and that the replacement generation maintains a minimum reserve capacity established by the utility's reliability coordinator. The Commission must also determine that the utility provided sufficient evidence that there will be no net incremental costs recovered from ratepayers that could be avoided by continuing to operate that fossil fuel-fired facility in compliance with applicable law. Applicable law would cover state and federal law. A decision to retire a fossil fuel generating unit cannot be the result of a federal agency, financial incentives, or benefits. And the utility must provide evidence of all known, direct, and indirect costs of retiring the unit and demonstrate that there will be cost savings that result from retiring the unit and replacing it with a different facility. Replacement generation, the legal standard there is established in 278.020. Another commission statute requires every utility to provide adequate service. Part of the provision of adequate service is making prudent investment in facilities. Here, the utility must obtain prior approval from the commission before building replacement generation to furnish electric service to customers. It's called approval of a need of public convenience and necessity, or CPCN. The legal standards for CPCN are considered within the context of other issues, such as keeping rates as low as possible. This is because if the determination is made that this facility is needed and does not result in wasteful duplication, which we'll discuss in a minute, there's a presumption in favor of recovering the cost for constructing that utility in a future rate case. So that's why we look at the application in terms of long-term costs and benefits. The two standards that are applied are a need. There has to be a need for the facility, and that need means utility has to provide evidence that there will be a substantial inadequacy of existing service if that replacement generation is not constructed. There's also a requirement that the facility must be economically feasible. And that really carries into the second standard, which is that the facility will not result in wasteful duplication or excess investment. One of the ways that a utility must demonstrate that is that the utility considers all reasonable alternatives, evaluates them all fairly and thoroughly, and then makes a determination that a particular option is a reasonable least cost option. What's key to know there is, in terms of reasonable, the lowest cost option is not going to be the alternative chosen just because it's least cost. It has to be reasonable and least cost. That I will turn this over to my colleague, Tripp Costin.
Thank you, Nancy. Again, my name is Tripp Costin, and I am the Director of Financial Analysis here at the Public Service Commission. And I'm just going to go over a high-level overview of the petition that is before the Commission. This case involves the proposed retirement of 7 generating facilities, and the utility is proposing to replace those with natural gas, solar, and battery facilities or agreements. They are proposing to retire 4 coal electric generating units, and those proposals to retire are the E.W. Brown Unit 3, the Ghent Unit 2, Mill Creek Units 1 and 2. They are also proposing to retire 3 natural gas simple cycle combustion turbine generating units, and those units are the Hafling Units 1 and 2 and the Paddy's Run Unit 12. They are proposing for those retirements to take effect sometime between 2024 and 2027. In addition, as I said, they are looking at replacing and proposing to replace those generating units with 2 new natural gas combined cycle facilities, 2 solar facilities, 1 battery storage facility, and 4 solar power purchase agreements. And they are proposing for those to be implemented between 2026 and 2028. According to the company and the utilities, all of the 7 units are near the end of their useful life cycle, and it would require significant investment to continue to operate the units in compliance with changing environmental laws, and that the investment would not be cost effective. Again, that's the utility's assertion in this case. And in addition to the utility's position, there are a set of intervening parties that are participating in this case. And I'm going to just quickly go over the 9 that are participating here. The first is the Attorney General. In the Attorney General's office, they have an Office of Rate Intervention, and that office has the statutory authority to intervene in any PSC proceeding to represent the customer's interest. So they do represent the customers and are considered the customer advocate. Additional interveners include Walmart, the Kentucky Coal Association, the Kentucky Industrial Utility Customers, the Joint Interveners, which is a group comprising of the Metropolitan Housing Coalition, Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, Kentucky Solar Energy Society, and Mountain Association. Also, the Metro Louisville and Lexington Fayette Urban County Government is a party, the Sierra Club, and Mercer County Physical Courts. So again, those are the listings of the parties in addition to the utility in this case.
Okay, so this is Linda Bridwell again. So just to go through our next steps, as we discussed, there are 5 public meetings. There were 4 that were in person, the first one being on July 31st in Lexington at Frederick Douglass High School, the second on August 3rd in Harlan. Last night was the 3rd one in Madisonville. Tonight is the virtual one. And then tomorrow night is in Louisville, is our final public comment period, or our public comment meeting. Then again, the hearing will be held in Frankfort beginning on Tuesday, August 22nd at 9 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time and continuing for several days. So there are still opportunities to provide public comments. You can either come to Louisville tomorrow, come to the the hearing on August 22nd at the beginning of the hearing, either virtually or in person. Then there will also be an opportunity by going through our website. You can email them or send them through on a form on our website, or you can write to them. I guess I want to make sure at this point that everyone understands that the public comments are all, we are recording this in addition to the live feed. And then at any point, someone can go back and they're on our website. You can go back and watch any of the public comment meetings that were held. In addition to that, the entire case record is open to the public, everything that has been filed by LG&E and KU and everything filed by the intervening parties. Again, it's all available on our website for anyone from the public to read through and understand the details of the case. So we're going to skip through at this point. Sometimes we will take questions from the audience, but we don't have anybody here in the hearing room about the process. So if you'll, Nancy, move on. Okay, so just to give you, so you get an opportunity to write down, our website is psc.ky.gov. If after this period you want to look at the hearings, you will go to that website. There's an opportunity to watch the hearings while they're going on or go back and look at the video. In addition to that, you may email public comments to psc.comment@ky.gov. If you are wanting to enter comments in the case, you need to have in the comment line the case number, or there is a form on the website that you can just put in the case number and they automatically upload to the case file. If you want to do it the old-fashioned way, as I mentioned, our address is 211 Sauer Boulevard. You can write your public comments in and we will upload it, and all of those comments are available at any time on the public record in this case. So with that, the 3 of us are going to sit down and we're going to open up the hearing and turn it over to our commissioners. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'll now start the public comment portion of our virtual public comment meeting. And this is in case number 2022-00402, electronic joint application of Kentucky Utilities Company and Louisville Gas and Electric Company for certificates of public convenience and necessity and site compatibility certificates, and approval of a demand-side management plan and approval of fossil fuel-fired generating unit retirements. My name is Angie Hatton. I'm Vice Chair of the Kentucky Public Service Commission, and joining me today is Commissioner Mary Pat Regan, Chairman Kent Chandler is unable to participate tonight, but will review the record of these comments at a later time. This meeting is being recorded for the benefit of the public, the record, and in order for all commissioners to review and consider. We are here today to take public comments in a virtual forum regarding LG&E and KU's application for Certificate of Public Convenience Necessity and for approval of a demand-side management plan, and LG&E and KU's application for approval of fossil fuel-fired generating unit retirements, as I mentioned, consolidated in case number 2022-00402. Guess we need to make sure that everyone is muted. There we go. To reiterate the point made during the overview, the role and obligation of the PSC is to ensure that the application does or does not meet the legal standards applicable to the applications, including whether there is a need for the proposed generation and whether the proposed generation results in wasteful duplication. We understand that in any proceeding of this type, there are strong feelings and opinions. We ask that as you provide comments today, you be respectful and mindful of the time limit for each speaker. We are here to listen. The utility is not presenting during the public comment meeting, and neither are the interveners in this case. The utility and other parties will have an opportunity to make their case during the pendency of this matter. This is an opportunity for customers of the utility and the public to state their positions, concerns, and to provide the Commission comments for its consideration. Again, the Commission is here to listen. During today's comment sessions, we will not be answering questions. The Commission is the fact finder and decision maker in this case, and as such, the Commissioners are unable to comment or speak to the process or substance of the pending application. Nevertheless, questions you raise during your comments may be of assistance to the Commission and its staff in adjudicating this matter. If you have questions for the utility or the parties in this case, you may ask them during the public meeting with the anticipation that those entities can later convey an appropriate answer outside of this public meeting. Contact information for the company can be received by calling the Kentucky Public Service Commission and speaking to our staff. The number is 502-564-3940. Since this is a virtual public meeting, call-in instructions have been posted on the Commission's website, and those instructions state, among other things, that persons should email the Commission if they would like to make a public comment. I've been told that 11 people have made requests to make a public comment at this virtual public meeting. We currently have all callers muted, but our IT staff will unmute callers as I call their names. Given the number of participants, who have initially indicated their interest in providing comments, we will be limiting the length of comments to 7 minutes for each commenter. We will let you know when you have 1 minute remaining, and if you can see me as you're commenting, I'll raise this sheet when we're at the 6 minute point, so you'll know you have 1 minute remaining. As always, written comments may be made to the Commission at any time during the consideration of this case. The written comments must include your name, address, and reference case number 2022-00402. Comments may be mailed to the PSC at P.O. Box 615, 211 Sauer Boulevard, that's spelled S-O-W-E-R, in Frankfort, Kentucky 40602-0615. Or you may email your comments to psc.comment@ky.gov. When you speak, please provide your name and address prior to your comments. We will now begin taking comments. The first person that I have signed up to speak is Barbara Morgan or Jim Morgan. Barbara or Jim Morgan, are you present? If so, go ahead and speak up. Okay, I'll come back to that one at the end. The next I have signed up to speak is Annette Hines. Annette Hines present on the call? I will come back to that one as well. Next, Zoe Strecker. Is Zoe Strecker present?
Oh, yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine. If you'll state your name and your address, and then I'll start the timer after your address.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Zoe Strecker, and my address is 413 Cog Hill Lane, Harrodsburg, Kentucky, 40330.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you more broadly to the Public Service Commission for serving on this very important commission. I'm aware that this is a complex case, and I will say that my comments are based on a more broad perspective that all fossil fuel-fired utilities should be retired. I believe that these that are proposed should be retired, but that they absolutely should not be replaced with polluting gas plants that will be outrageously expensive. I want to say that LG&E and KU must absolutely and ambitiously pursue a really rapid transition to renewable energy and continue building infrastructure for fossil fuels as soon as possible. Not, as they're proposing here, continue for 40 more years. All of the dirty and damaging sources of the past should be phased out as quickly as possible. We can't afford for these damages to our health and the environment to continue. I'm also aware that negotiating for renewable construction with local communities for siting things like solar arrays is tricky, but I think that we need to focus on it and that they need to focus on it. They need to build trust and find solutions that would make each of these communities who potentially could be the site of such generation be proud and also get excellent energy prices and the benefit of any jobs that are created. I believe that the Public Service Commission needs to push LG&E and KU to support homeowners and businesses to pursue substantial energy efficiency techniques like insulation and efficient HVAC systems, and that everyone should be able to heat and cool our spaces for as little cost as possible. We really don't have time to wait for this. We need the PSC to insist that all of Kentucky's energy producers become meaningful leaders in a quick transition to clean, renewable energy and its efficient use. I would strongly recommend that you reject this irresponsible proposal and demand seriously sustainable plans. And if LG&E and KU can't or won't do it, then they need to get out of the industry and get out of the way. And our state needs to find providers who can do this very work in a responsible and a renewable way. And I really appreciate the Public Service Commission taking the time to hear public comment, and I imagine many Kentuckians are eager to hear about sustainable plans rather than this terrible replacement of fossil fuel infrastructure with more fossil fuel infrastructure. So again, thank you very much. That ends my comments.
Thank you very much. The next on my list is Catherine Smith.
Hello.
Hi there. Please tell us your name and address.
Yeah, I'm Catherine Smith. I live at 143 Woodland Avenue, Lexington, Kentucky, 40502.
All right. You may begin your comments.
Awesome. Well, yeah, also wanted to give thanks for having room for public comment on this. So I'm Catherine Smith. I am a state organizer with the Kentucky Student Environmental Coalition. I'm also an LG&E customer and a young person who has a big stake in the future of Kentucky with the hopes to live a long, healthy life with access to clean air and water, affordable energy, and a stable climate. And currently, our state is already seeing the very real, very destructive impacts of climate change through unprecedented and ongoing tornadoes, increases in extreme weather events, record-breaking heat, and flooding caused by long-term extraction from the fossil fuel industry. I'm sure we all remember the record-breaking flooding in the fall of 2022 in eastern Kentucky. I was amongst a crew of folks covered head to toe in mud, mucking out someone's basement while talking with their neighbor who didn't even know where their house was because it had washed away. And I don't want to see this continue to live in. And I don't want to keep seeing the current housing crisis we are in to continue to be exacerbated by climate change. And we know that continuing to invest in fossil fuel infrastructure is only going to compound these very real consequences for the people of Kentucky and what you represent. I fully support LG&E and KU's retiring of these coal plants, especially with the information that's been released on how many of these coal plants have been top at the list in the whole country for premature death from coal soot ash. So I think that this is definitely a step in the right direction, but I don't think that we can stop here. I have serious concerns about the plans to invest in these two new expensive and polluting 40-year gas plants, which were also conveniently not outlined in their 15-year plan, which I remember because I actually also provided comment for their IRP in 2022. And before a 40-year gas plan is even considered, we need to expand efficiency programs, rooftop solar, utility scale solar, storage, and fully explore new capacity alternatives, such as virtual power plants and joining regional grids. The company's currently proposed energy efficiency proposals just simply aren't adequate. Kentucky is one of the poorest records in the country on energy efficiency in terms of residential energy efficiency program savings as a percentage of sales and revenue spent on energy efficiency programs. Kentucky also needs energy efficiency programs that achieve at least 2 to 3% of load. We want a public commitment to ignore the company's 1% cap on rooftop solar and to continue to support distributing resources after reaching that threshold. And we also want the companies to help customers and invest in energy efficiency, solar and storage, and access IRA benefits outside of company programs, which really means better policy advocacy as well. We are in 2023. There are like so many safe, affordable, and renewable solutions outlined above. The LG&E and KU 100% has the resources to be implementing and must be implemented if they're actually going to reach the proposed goal of net zero carbon emissions that they have outlined for 2050. 2050 is in 27 years. A 40-year-long commitment to continued pollution just isn't going to get us there. And the time to transition off of fossil fuel was yesterday. We simply do not have the time to be messing with risky liabilities of these gas plants. And as someone who also, again, is an LG&E customer, I don't want to have to pay for the very pollutants that are going to keep all of us from living the long, healthy lives that we all deserve. Thank you so much for giving me time to speak today, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Okay. Thank you. The next on my list is Danica. Danica, and I am not going to try to pronounce your last name. If you will go ahead and say that for us and then your address.
Sure, it's Danica Novgorodov.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I live at 2010 Grassmere Drive, Louisville, Kentucky, 40205. I'm a writer and a mother of two, and I'm also an LG&E payer. I bought my first house about 3 years ago, and it's a modest-sized 100-year-old home in Louisville. And this year in particular, I've been a bit shocked by how high my energy. This past winter, my LG&E bills were about almost $400 a month for several months, and my house is not particularly large. As I mentioned, I'm an artist, preschool teacher, so it really takes a heavy toll on our budget. And I know there are many ratepayers who are able to pay these kinds of bills than we are. So Kentucky has some of the worst records in the US for energy efficiency in residential homes. I would love to be able to afford to add insulation to my home and to replace the 100-year-old windows that get frost on the inside on the glass in the winter. So instead of pouring money into producing and delivering more gas and more fossil fuel energy that's just going to leak out of our homes, I believe that LG&E needs to invest in energy efficiency programs to A, help ratepayers afford their energy bills, and B, waste less energy and create less fossil fuel pollution. And as gas plants are faced with upcoming carbon policies and pollution requirements that the EPA is already proposing, it's going to be customers like me who are on the line to pay for these frankly irresponsible investments that LG&E is proposing. And a lot of us can't afford to pay higher energy bills. So I agree with LG&E and KU's long overdue decision to close the existing coal units, but I'm very concerned about investing in new, expensive, polluting fossil fuel plants. Finally, I'm having a hard time believing in LG&E and KU as a reliable and trustworthy company, given that LG&E and KU did not include this gas power plant proposal in their latest 15-year IRP, as was mentioned. So what are they trying to do? Do they think they're above the regulatory process? Are they trying to just slip these power plants past the PSC and the public? Are they not truly planning for a responsible energy future? And I think it's worth considering the recent retirement of the Doe Run natural gas storage facility that runs under the Ohio River. This case, as I'm sure you know, was presented to the PSC, and it stated, quote, despite LG&E's awareness of its leaking natural gas since at least 2005, LG&E continued to use this faulty container until it was no longer profitable. And that was this year in 2023. So LG&E used this natural gas storage facility for nearly 20 years, knowing it was leaking harmful gases. Apparently up to 20% of its annual volume of gas was leaking, while they ignored it and passed those financial losses on to ratepayers. So given this track record, it seems obvious to me that LG&E can't be trusted to plan and execute these new gas plants and to be financially accountable to ratepayers and to keep our energy sources safe and reliable. So for those reasons, I urge the PSC to say no to LG&E and KU's new gas plants. We don't need them, and new fossil fuel infrastructure is bad for customers, it's bad for the environment, it's a financial mistake, and it's just an irresponsible plan for our future. They need to instead invest in energy efficiency programs and the rapid development of solar generation, especially distributed solar generation, which will give us a much more reliable electricity for the coming decades. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Donna Miller. Ms. Miller?
Hello. Yes, I'm Donna Miller. My name is Donna Miller. My address is 2140 Bonnycastle Avenue, Louisville, Kentucky. So I'd really like to thank you for the opportunity to provide public comment and for the job that you do as commissioners. I haven't done this before, and I'm not an expert on energy, and I am wanting to build on what's already been said and come with a slightly different perspective. I'm here speaking again as an LG&E customer, a retired psychologist, and as a grandmother. And I'm just deeply concerned about the proposal to build 2 new gas power plants and the impact that this can have on future generations long after many of us are gone. I want to voice strong support of the plan to retire the coal units, but I believe given all that we know and can see happening from the impact of burning fossil fuels, the idea of building new power plants at this point is both really dangerous and also would be a really bad investment. And I think it would waste all that opportunity to be investing in additional clean and renewable forms of energy and building the infrastructure to go with that and ushering in the energy jobs that would go with that for the future. Speaking as a retired psychologist and especially as a grandmother, I am really concerned about the message that we send children and young people when we repeatedly fail to take account of the potential long-term costs and harms to them of decisions around energy that we're making today. It doesn't actually surprise me that many adolescents are fearful and some are losing hope about the future. I'd like to just close by saying that I believe we owe today's children and future generations the opportunity to grow up in as stable a climate as may still be possible, assuming we all do our part. And in order for this to happen, I think we obviously need to decrease, not increase, our dependence on fossil fuels. And we need to do that now, not 40 years from now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Julie Donna.
Hi, I would like to pass on my time right now.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thanks.
That means next is Sarah Austin. Ms. Austin? I think you're being.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead,
sorry
please.
about that.
No problem.
Yes, my name is Sarah Austin. I live at 6735 Shenandoah Drive in Florence. But I do have friends and family that live, close to your area. And I just want to piggyback back off of what everyone else said. I feel like that we need to commit 100% to renewable energy now so we can prevent more climate disasters from happening in the future. It's already so bad that a lot of our kids can't go out and play right now, because of the climate crisis. In Florence, we've had a lot of, there's been a lot of homelessness that has been increasing in Florence due to the cost of living. And I fear for those people every day, seeing them. They have no place to go. They have no place to stay cool. And it just, we really need to do everything that we can to focus on renewable energy and not continuing with gas and fossil fuels.
Okay.
I don't really have too much else to say. I think everybody ahead of me has probably explained the situation better than I have, but I just want to state that I agree with them. I'm glad that we're closing down the coal plants, but we need to be replacing those with 100% renewable energy and maybe programs to help homeowners afford, to make energy efficient improvements to their home, like solar, insulation, winterization, things like that.
Okay, does that conclude your comments, Ms. Austin?
Yes, that does conclude my comments. Thank you very much. And thank you so much for having this opportunity for us to talk about what's going on.
Thank you. Okay, next is David Nickel.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, I'm David Nickel. I live at 1079 US 60 West, Ledbetter, Kentucky. That's 42058. I'm in far western Kentucky. I'm interested in this because I am a very recently retired sociology professor, and I've been focused on energy issues, and I've been following this for some time, and I would like to add my comments to this. This kind of issue goes back into the 19th century, actually, when utilities were first beginning to operate, provide electricity for people around the country, and it was described as what economists call a natural monopoly. That is, you cannot feasibly have competing companies providing the full infrastructure, power generation, everything else. And the alternatives were either the government can do it or else you allow the private sector to do it with heavy government regulation. The government determines how it happens and makes sure it's done for the public good. Providing electricity is a basic public necessity. Everyone needs access to it. The free market doesn't work, won't provide it. Early on, people realized that the private sector was perfectly willing and capable of providing electricity, generating it, and distributing it in urban areas where you had a high concentration of people, customers. But they were never going to run electric lines out into rural areas where you had few customers and lots of expense of getting electricity out there. So there had to be government involvement to make that happen. This was realized from early on. My point in this is government regulators need to be taking a heavy hand in this, more than normal, because we are in a transition period. If you allow the private sector to do this, they're going to always go for whatever will produce the most profits for them, which is going to be the fossil fuels. They're not going to want to go with the sustainable methods. I live in a house that's, well, first of all, this farm has been in my family for many generations. The house was built in the 1830s. I have rooftop solar. It's been amazing what it's done to my electric bill, all the rest of this. But the policies in place right now do not encourage more people to do that. We ought to have policies in place that encourage people to do this. We should be regulating in such a way that the energy companies are promoting this and moving that direction. Going to more fossil fuels does not make sense. It may make economic sense for the company. It does not make economic sense for the people. One of the things that ought to be taken into account into this is the economic impact that these policies are going to have, these transitions are going to have on low-income and fixed-income families. How will this impact them? How will this change affect how they eat? That needs to be taken into account. It needs to be measured. It needs to be quantified. We have LGE proposing things like a new natural gas pipeline to run through Bernheim Forest to supply gas to a private corporation for profits. What impact is that going to have on the environment? What impact will it have on families? What impact will it have on electric bills? Those things need to be taken into account, need to be considered. I strongly support everything everybody else has said here, that we need to be regulating towards, we need to be promoting more sustainable growth, sustainable economies, sustainable energy. We do live in Kentucky, but despite that, it's still the 21st century. We are going to experience the impacts of climate change. We need to be taking the steps right now to try to mitigate that as much as possible. And the private sector these corporations are not going to do that on their own. The only way that's going to happen is for government regulators to push them that direction. I would strongly encourage that to happen. And I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nickel. Next on the list is, I don't want to mispronounce, but James Mikulek. Please correct me if I'm saying that wrong.
That was actually right. You said that perfectly.
Thank you. You may begin, sir.
Thank you. First off, like those before me, I'd like to thank you all for holding this comment period. And I also want to note that it is really helpful that you guys hold these comment periods in the late afternoon or evening so that people who are working can still attend them. That means a lot to me. So I am a young engineer with experience working alongside electrical utility companies, significantly working for CMTA Energy Solutions in Louisville, Kentucky. And I believe I might provide a bit of a unique perspective on these issues. I 100% agree that the coal power plants in Louisville and throughout Kentucky need to be retired. They generate air pollution, they create coal ash, which has to be dealt with. They're expensive. It's not a good technology, and it needs to be put to rest. I also agree with the commenters before me that the natural gas power plants need to be forgotten. That is not the solution to these issues, and they shouldn't be used to replace the coal power plants. Like the people before me said, replacing fossil fuel with fossil fuel is just not a great idea. Now, this brings me to one thing that I might offer a unique perspective on. In my current employment, I help my company manage our utility bills, and we consume far more natural gas than any household would. And while relying on natural gas, I've noticed how difficult it is for us to plan our future capital investments. Just this winter, we were paying $9 per decatherm of natural gas, and this summer, we're paying $2 per decatherm of natural gas. Now, you might think, oh, it got cheaper, that's good. And while it's nice when it's cheap, if we have no way of predicting what the future of that price is going to be, then how will we know if we need to buy more efficient boilers or if we should not use natural gas boilers at all? So while these do hurt the taxpayers and the common citizen of Kentucky, it's also terrible for industry in Kentucky. And I also want to make the point that if my huge firm that has access to debt and other tools to get through those difficult times when gas is extra expensive struggles with this issue, that the common man in Kentucky, common man, woman, citizen of Kentucky, has a much harder time dealing with this, especially those that are low income. Just 1 month of high bills can put them into a spiral of difficulties. So instead of natural gas, I think that our primary investment should be in energy efficiency. There are so many ways to do this. You can offer subsidies for insulation, for heat pumps, for LED lights, and for building management systems, which are devices that might turn off your HVAC or lights when you leave the house. Some of the utility companies, I think LGE included, do offer some subsidies for these, but they are tiny. Now, I know that from my time with CMTA Energy Solutions. We're talking about less than $10 for a device that might cost hundreds of dollars. They need to be much larger, and like the University of Kentucky student stated before me, LG&E underinvests in these subsidies. They could put a lot more money toward it. I think after energy efficiency, we should be talking about grid-scale solar. LG&E has proposed some of this. I think that they should propose more of it. I think it's a great solution, generates a lot of power, and it's cheap. It also creates a lot of good jobs. After that, I think that investment should be made into distributed solar, like rooftop solar. Again, from my experience with CMTA Energy Solutions, I know that LG&E does not have rate structures that encourage people to install distributed solar. One thing that they've been doing over the past 10 or 20 years is decreasing the amount that customers pay per amount of electricity, so like per kilowatt hour, but increasing the amount they pay based on demand. It often comes out close to even, but significantly, solar panels don't decrease the amount of energy people, do decrease the amount of energy people use, but rarely decrease demand. That's a complicated issue. I don't think I should explain it today, but know that it is a policy that disincentivizes rooftop solar. Also, LG&E's 1% cap on home solar, that should just be ignored. There's no reason to cap that. Solar power is very cost effective. It does not create PM 2.5 pollution like that chokes our city right now and will continue to choke it if we build more natural gas power plants. Even power plants that have emissions controls create PM 2.5 pollution that's known to cause asthma, lung cancer, heart disease, etc. I think another option for power generation that LG&E is not considering enough is hydropower. There are many dams in Kentucky. I know when I was growing up, I used to love to brag that Kentucky has more lakes than any other state. That probably is not true, but we do have hundreds of lakes. Most of those lakes have dams that do not generate any kind of hydropower. By my own research today, I found that major dams, of which there are only 30 in Kentucky, the ones that are in LG&E's territory, there are 10 that do not generate hydropower, 10 or more. Thanks for the warning there. That concludes my comments today. I appreciate you taking the time to hear my opinion. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir. Okay. The last person on my list, and then I'll go back through to see if any of the others have appeared who didn't answer up earlier. The last is Lisa Abbott. Is Lisa Abbott on the call? Okay. What about Barbara or Jim Morgan? Or Annette Hines? Okay. If there is anyone else on the call who would like to speak, but maybe I haven't called your name, now would be the time. But I don't see anyone else unmuting or seeking the opportunity to be heard. If there's no one else who would like to comment at this time, we will, in just a few minutes, adjourn the meeting. Remember, you may submit written comments to the Commission by either mailing or emailing them. The email address is psc.comment@ky.gov. When you email or mail your comment, be sure to reference case number 2022-00402. There's also an additional opportunity to provide public comments in person tomorrow, August 16th at 5:30 p.m. in Louisville at Louisville Public Library's main branch. The address is 301 York Street, Community Room 202. Information is available at the PSC homepage at psc.ky.gov. You may also provide a public comment in person or virtually at the start of the hearing of this case on August 22nd at 9 a.m. Eastern. I thank you all for participating and for your interest, and this meeting will now be adjourned.